For more than a decade now, the tech world has flirted with this idea that just won't go away. What if the phone in your pocket could completely replace your laptop? Not sort of, not as a backup, but truly be your main computer. We've seen a lot of attempts stumble along the way, and honestly, most of them felt like interesting experiments rather than real solutions. But Nex Computer is back with something that finally feels different, and that's where the NexPhone comes in. Think about your own routine for a second. Your phone is already the device you reach for first thing in the morning, and the last thing you check at night. It's where your messages live, your photos, your notes, your apps, your cloud files, everything. Now imagine that same device turning into a full desktop computer when you sit down at a desk, or a laptop replacement when you're traveling, without juggling multiple machines. That's the simple but powerful idea behind the NexPhone, and it's trying to make that vision actually usable instead of just cool on paper. At its core, the NexPhone is a smartphone that knows how to change roles depending on what you need at the moment. As a phone, it runs Android just like you'd expect, handling everyday tasks without any fuss. But when you want more power or a more traditional computing environment, it can spin up a full Linux desktop using Debian. And if you really need it, you can even dual boot into Windows. One device, 3 operating systems, each stepping in when it makes the most sense. What's interesting is that this isn't some sudden brainstorm from Nex Computer. This has been a long-term obsession. If you remember the early 2000s, you might recall similar ideas floating around back in 2012, when companies promised phones that could dock into monitors and magically become PCs. Back then, though, the reality didn't quite match the dream. Mobile chips struggled when pushed hard, display connections were messy, and running desktop software on a phone felt like forcing a square peg into a round hole. Fast forward to today, and things look very different. According to Nex Computer founder Emre Cosmaz, several key pieces finally came together. Mobile processors are far more powerful and efficient, meaning they can handle real workloads without immediately overheating or slowing to a crawl. USB-C has matured into a genuinely capable standard for displays and accessories, and the overall ecosystem around mobile and desktop software has evolved in a way that makes this kind of crossover feel much more natural. There's also a huge cultural shift that can't be ignored. The way most of us work today isn't the same as it was 10 or 15 years ago. Remote work is normal. Cloud-based tools are everywhere. A lot of our daily tasks live in browsers, chat apps, and shared documents that don't care what device you're using, as long as you're connected. That shift quietly removed many of the barriers that once made phone as your computer feel unrealistic. Before jumping straight into making a phone like this, Nex Computer tested the waters with something called the NexDock. Over 6 generations, they shipped laptop-style shells with screens, keyboards, and trackpads that let you plug in a smartphone and use it like a computer. That experiment wasn't loud or flashy, but it proved something important. People actually wanted this. There was real demand for a simpler, more unified way to compute. The NexPhone builds directly on that lesson. One of the biggest selling points, according to Cosmaz, is continuity. You're not syncing files back and forth, logging into the same apps on multiple machines, or trying to remember where you saved something. It's all just there, because it's all one device. Unlike a Chromebook or a secondary laptop, the NexPhone isn't trying to coexist with your phone, it's trying to replace the need for a second computer altogether. That said, Nex Computer is refreshingly honest about the limitations. This isn't a magic device that makes high-end laptops obsolete overnight. If your work involves long video renders, massive code compilations, or other sustained heavy workloads, traditional laptops and desktops still have the advantage, especially when it comes to cooling and raw power. Some specialized professional software and hardware setups are also simply easier to manage on a conventional PC. But here's the key point. That gap is smaller than it's ever been. For a huge number of people whose work is browser-based, communication-heavy, or built around cloud tools, the NexPhone can already handle a surprising amount of daily computing. And as mobile chipsets continue to improve at a rapid pace, that gap keeps shrinking year after year. For users who rely on powerful, always-on desktop setups, the NexPhone might not make sense. But for everyone else, it's a compelling idea. One always-connected device, fewer upgrades, less clutter on your desk and in your bag, and potentially less electronic waste over time, which is something we don't talk about enough. The NexPhone probably won't replace every laptop out there, and it doesn't need to. What it might do is finally make this long-promised concept feel normal instead of novel. The device is priced at $549 US, with a refundable $199 deposit to reserve one ahead of its planned Q3 2026 launch. If you've ever wished your phone could truly be your only computer, this might be the closest we've come yet.